Hello friends, today we are going to discuss about direction sense test. This is the second chapter in logical reasoning. It's a very simple and easy topic. In fact, it's equally scoring. All you have to do is follow a certain logical pattern. Now imagine you're in pre-Google Maps days, okay? So if somebody were to come to your house and they're lost and they call you, so how would you give directions? All you would say is, if let's assume they're standing near a temple or they're standing near a common place which is easily known to all, you'll give directions. How do you give directions? You say, from there go straight, turn left, turn right, look there, travel for some time. So this entire topic is exactly like that. So all you have to do is just follow these logical set of directions and there you have all the answers. How do we solve these kind of problems? The easiest way to solve these problems is to imagine an India map. Imagine there's an India map here. This is the eastern part, this is the western part. East is where we have the northeastern states, West Bengal, and west is where we have Mumbai. Now, if this is west and this is east, this is the northern part. Northern part is where we have the Himalayas, where you have Jammu and Kashmir. And this is the southern part where we have the Indian Ocean and Sri Lanka below in the Indian Ocean. So imagine, always imagine there is an India map and then start solving the problem becomes very, very simple. Now, if this is the India map, one key important point to note is if let's say the question says something about northeast or northwest, so where are these directions? What did we say? This is the eastern part and this is the western part. The northeast position or northeast direction, if given in the examination as part of the problem, where does northeast lie? Northeast lie between north and east. This is the northeastern direction. Similarly, what is the northwestern direction? This is the western part of the country, this is the northern part. Northwesterly direction is between north and west, so this is the northwesterly direction. Same way, this is the southwest and this is the southeast. So we now have a basic idea of directions. So students, let's solve one problem and understand how to answer these kind of questions. Imagine there is a gentleman called Mr. Ramu. What did I say? Whenever there's a problem, first imagine India map. There's an India map here. Now imagine Ramu at the center of the country in Nagpur, right? So what does the question say? Mr. Ramu steps out of his house and traveled 2 kilometers north. So Ramu is here, he traveled 2 kilometers north. Then the question also says after 2 kilometers he takes a right turn. So when he travels here and takes a right turn, he actually moves towards the east, right? Then the question says he takes another right turn. So he takes a right turn here, this is the original starting point, he's reached here, takes a right turn and it says he traveled another 2 kilometers. So the final question in the problem is, what is the relative position of Mr. Ramu compared to his original starting point? What do we see here, students? We see the direction in which Mr. Ramu has gone. Started from his home, went north, took a right turn and then came down further. By taking another right turn, he is actually towards in the eastern side compared to his original starting point. But what is the distance between his current position and the starting point? It's actually 2 kilometers. How? See, these three sides actually look like three sides of the square and this obviously is the fourth side. And what is the distance between any two corners in a square? It is equal. So this distance is about 2 kilometers. So the correct answer to this problem is Mr. Ramu is 2 kilometers to the east of his original starting point. See how simple it is to solve this kind of problems. Look at this problem. Ramu walks 5 kilometers starting from her house towards west. So students, what did I say? I said first, whenever we are solving problems like this, we have to imagine the India map. Let's see, there's an India map here and Ramu is in the center of the country, which she is in Nagpur. Okay, so this is where Ramu is, right? So she starts from her house and walks westwards for 5 kilometers. That's what the question says. So she walks west for 5 kilometers. Okay, and then what does the question say? She turns right. So when you're walking towards the west and you turn right, you actually go towards the north. She walks there for another 3 kilometers. And then she takes a left turn and walks 2 kilometers. So from here, she takes a left turn and walks 2 kilometers. So first she did 5, then she did 3 and then she did another 2. What does the question say after that? She again takes another left turn and walks another 3 kilometers. So from here, she takes a left turn and walks 3 kilometers, right? Finally, she takes a right turn now. So far, she has taken 2 left turns and now she is taking a right turn. So when she is here, she takes a right turn, which actually leads her this way. And from there, she walks another 3 kilometers. So this is another 3. What is the question? In what direction is she now from her house? So students, where did she start? She started here, went like this, then came back, and finally she is here. She is towards the western part from compared to her original starting point. So the answer to this question is she is towards the west of her house, right? Now imagine there is a small variation in this question. The question says also find out the distance. How will you do that? So for here we initially saw this is 5, then this distance is 2 kilometers. How am I saying this is 2? This looks like a rectangle with 2 sides being 2 and 2 sides being 3, right? So this is 5, one side is 2, and finally she walks 3. So the exact distance, right, is about 10 kilometers. So if the question were to say what is the distance between Ramu's current position and her house, the answer would be 10 kilometers towards the west. So let's look at another problem. This is an interesting one. Gopal started walking 2 kilometers straight from his school. Then he turned right and walked 1 kilometer. Again he turned right and walked 1 more kilometer to reach his house. If his house is southeast from his school, then in which direction did Gopal start walking from the school? So students, it is very important to read the full question first before you actually jump into solving the problem. These are the kind of googly questions that you might actually get in the exam. So students, how do we solve this? We've got one point very clear that his home is to the southeast of his school. Now, what does the question ask? The question asks which direction did the student start walking from his school, right? So now let's do 2 or 3 iterations. Assume for a moment that he steps out of his school and starts walking towards the north. What does it say? It says he walks 2 kilometers towards the north, assuming that he walks north, and then he takes a right turn, right? Walks 1 kilometer and then he takes another right and walks 1 more kilometer. Now, has he reached his house by doing all of this? No. So this definitely is not the right answer. So he did not start walking north, right? So let us look at another direction in which he could have started walking. Let's assume he started walking towards the west. He comes out of his school, walks 2 kilometers to the west, and then he takes a right turn, right? And walks 1 more kilometer. After that, he takes another right turn and walks 1 more kilometer. So, if he takes a western direction, has he reached his home? No, not yet. So, this is also not the right answer. Imagine now he starts walking towards the south, okay? He starts walking towards the south, walks for 2 kilometers, and then he takes a right turn after going towards the south. So, when you are going towards the south and you take a right turn, where do you go? You actually go towards the western part. Right? So he takes a western direction and walks 1 kilometer. What does the question say? The question says takes 1 more right turn. If you're going towards the west and take another right turn, where do you go? You go north. So he actually goes 1 more kilometers towards the north, and then has he reached his home yet? No, not yet. He's not yet reached his home. So this is also not the correct answer. Now what have we finished? We have finished north, west and south as the 3 directions in which he is tried. Now let us try the 4th direction. Let us assume he starts walking towards the east for 2 kilometers. 2. Then he walks for 1 more kilometer. After what? After taking a right turn. So when you are walking towards the east and take a right turn, where do you land up? You actually start going south. So he actually goes south for 1 kilometer. And then he takes another right turn. What did we see earlier? When you are going south and you take a right turn, you actually end up going towards the west, right? So he goes towards the west for 1 more kilometer. And then has he reached his house? Yes, he's actually reached his house now. But students, do we actually have so much time in the exams to solve these kind of problems? I mean, do all 4 iterations, first try this side, north, east, west, and then, finally figure out which direction the student moved? No, unfortunately not. Sometimes you may have, but not always. So how do we solve these kind of problems? You have to be slightly careful when you solve this problem and slightly, be imaginative. So how do we do this? See, this is north, this is west, this is south, and this is east. If the student actually is in the southeasterly direction, right? Southeasterly is this. His house is towards the southeast direction. Then if the student has to take turns and reach his house, the easiest starting point for us is to assume that the student is actually going either east or is going towards the south, and then solve the problem. Then you're actually down to only 2 options, and then you'll actually be able to figure out the answer yourself. You first go one direction, and if it turns out wrong, then go towards the other direction. This is a much easier way to solve these kind of problems.